Level 1. Listless auditor. You approve other men's expenses at a freight company off Airways Boulevard in Memphis, and in 20 years men will pay to hear you talk. You're 26. This morning you signed off on a $340 steak at Folks Folly for a vice president eating rice out of a container. At lunch you trade $400 on a laptop with a dead pixel on the price. You call yourself a traitor. Nobody else does. Marcus works the lobby desk. On a Thursday, in front of 2 people from accounts payable, he says the truest thing anybody says to you. You're really making money staring at those red and green boxes? Sometimes.
They laugh.
You laugh. He isn't trying to be funny. Then he asks you to teach him. You say he doesn't know what a candle is. He points at the screen. Then teach me what a candle is. You snap the bootlace on his clipboard and draw 1 green box and 1 red box on a napkin. You owe me a pen. 9 minutes. That's how long the lesson takes, and it is the most expensive thing you will ever give away for free. Level 2. Rookie investor. He asked you why. That's all it took. 2 weeks after the napkin, on your way out through the lobby, Marcus turns his phone around and points at a chart and asks why you'd buy there instead of 40 pips lower, and you open your mouth and hear yourself say, because it looked ready. Because it looked ready. You don't sleep that night. You've been guessing in a language you thought was a skill, and it took a man in a clip-on tie 11 seconds to find the bottom of it. Sunday you fund a real account. $2,000. 6 weeks of overtime, money that was supposed to be a transmission for an Altima with 140,000 miles on it. 9 days later, 60% of it is gone. Here's the part nobody prepares you for. You weren't wrong. You were right 4 times out of 5, right about the euro, right about the direction, right about the level. You just bought it in a size where being wrong for 90 minutes and being wrong forever are the same event. Everyone tells you to be right. Nobody tells you that being right is the cheap half. The margin notification arrives at 4:11 in the morning. You read it in bed with the brightness on 1 bar so it doesn't wake the room. You will do that for 9 more years and never once think it's strange. The account has $311 in it. Then Errol. $90 a month for a chat room run by a 61-year-old in Fort Lauderdale who traded currency back when it happened in a pit, who types in lowercase, who has never once said good morning to anybody. You paste your log because you have nothing left to protect. 14 minutes of nothing. Then, you don't have a direction problem. You have a size problem. Every man who ever went broke was right. You read it 4 times. It is the first sentence about trading that has ever cost you something to hear. He makes you keep it on paper, not a spreadsheet paper where you can't delete it. Every entry, every exit, every loss, handwritten, and beside each one the actual reason in your own handwriting where it can be read back to you later. You use the pen. It's the only pen on the desk. The first month you lose money slowly instead of quickly, and it feels like a demotion. The second month you break even, and you hate it more than losing. The third month you are still there, which is the whole test. The fourth month you make $411. It is the least exciting money of your life. You don't tell anyone, because there's nothing to tell you didn't win. You just stopped handing it back. It is also the first money you ever keep. And here's the thing you would not admit out loud. Not then, not for another 15 years. It was never about the $411. It was about being the one who knew. The guy at the desk with the dead pixel who understood something the whole floor didn't. Take the money away and you'd still have done it. That's the part that eats people. Not greed. That. Somewhere in the 5th month you start sleeping beside the laptop with the lid open so the light wakes you when London does. Jess 8 months in, works nights, which is the only reason it takes her this long to catch it, stands in the doorway one morning and asks how long that's been going on. You genuinely don't know. 11:40 on a Tuesday night, a text from Marcus, a screenshot. Up 40% in a month doing every single thing you told him not to do. No stop. Size on feel. Holding through news like the news is a rumor. Then a second text, 30 seconds behind it. Let's put our money together. Level 3. Full-time speculator. You go to the arcade on South Main to say no. You have the whole thing rehearsed on the drive over variance, sample size, the 40% that becomes 0, the way a man who has never been punched thinks he can't be. You are going to be the adult about it. He orders coffee and turns his laptop around before you get a word out. It's a photograph of a notebook. 5 months of it. Every entry, every exit, every loss, handwritten, and beside each one the actual reason in handwriting that gets neater as the pages go. Since the napkin. Every night at 3 in the morning before a 12-hour shift in a break room with a microwave in it. He didn't get lucky. He copied the one thing you did right. The speech stays in your pocket. You pool. 9,000 of yours. 6 of his entire savings and a Silverado he sold to a cousin in South Haven for under book value, and he says that part the way you'd mention the weather. The account is opened in your name because your credit is better. Then the number starts moving. $10,000, 50,000, 100,000 on a Tuesday afternoon while your out-of-office reply is still on from a dentist appointment. You refresh a browser tab and a number has changed, and somewhere in the world, nothing has happened at all. 200,000, 400. Somewhere in there Devin Roach calls you personally. Ardent Markets. VYP tier. 500 to 1 raw spreads. A dedicated line with his cell on it and dinner at Folks Folly where he pays. He remembers both your names without checking. He asks Marcus whether he misses the Silverado. You order the steak. $340. The same one you signed off on 2 years ago while eating rice out of a container. And you are aware of it the entire meal. And it tastes like arriving. That dinner is the most expensive meal either of you will ever eat. You don't know that, so you have the second glass and give him your phone number. Then you quit. You put the badge on the desk and your manager doesn't look up from his monitor. He says people like you always come back. He says it the way men say things they need to be true. You never see him again. 22 floors down in the elevator, alone, and you do not feel triumphant. You feel like you've gotten away with something. 20 years from now, you will stand in a rented room in front of 11 people who have all just felt exactly this, and you will not be able to warn a single one of them. Marcus doesn't quit. 5 more months. A millionaire in a clip-on tie checking badges at a lobby desk, 60 hours a week for $18 an hour. You tease him about it. You are gentle and you are relentless and you are, though it takes 15 years to see it, showing off. He tells you he's keeping the job because he doesn't trust anything that arrives this fast. It sounds like fear. It is the smartest thing either of you says all year. Then one afternoon in October, the account crosses $1 million, and neither of you says anything for about 90 seconds. You split it. You sign the withdrawal with a chewed blue ballpoint you've carried for 2 years. He watches you do it and says nothing. He wants to keep pooling. He says it lightly, twice, which is how you know it isn't light. You tell him you want your own book. You say it kindly, and you mean it. And something closes behind his eyes anyway. Nobody raises a voice. Nobody is wronged. You shake hands in a parking lot, and you both drive home richer than your fathers ever were. Nothing breaks. That's what makes it dangerous. Level 4. Market winner. Floor 22, and this time you live there. 11-foot ceilings, a view of the Mississippi you never look at. A doorman who calls you sir and means it. You researched the Porsche for 3 weeks and drove it 11 minutes before you checked your phone at a red light on Riverside. No boss, no schedule, no alarm. No reason to be anywhere at any time ever again. That last one turns out to be the whole problem. There is no closing bell in this market. It opens Sunday evening and it does not stop until Friday night 5 days with no seam in them. A stock guy gets to be finished at 4. You never get to be finished. You just get to be away from the screen, which is a different thing, and your body knows the difference. So you stop being away from it. You check at dinner, under the table, one thumb. You check in the shower with the phone in a sandwich bag, which you bought a box of. You check at stoplights. You check at 3 a.m. on purpose, because Tokyo. And then you can't get back to sleep, so you check again at 4. You have never been happier, and you could not tell anybody why in a sentence. Somewhere in there you stop keeping the notebook. There's an app now, and the app is faster, and the pen goes into a drawer under a $19,000 Rolex you have worn twice. Jess leaves in March, not a fight. There's no fight in her by then. She stands in the doorway with one box and she says, "You're not with anyone. You're just near them." Then she goes. She takes the good knives, which you don't notice for 4 days. And when you do notice, you are looking for a knife, and you stand in a kitchen you paid cash for with your hand in an empty drawer. 2/15 on a Wednesday in June. A central bank surprises everybody but you. 90 seconds. In 90 seconds, you make more than your father made in any year of his life, including the year he worked the second job. You take a screenshot. Then you scroll your contacts and there is nobody to send it to. Errol doesn't do that. Marcus, you haven't called in 5 months. Jess has the knives. You go out on the balcony and smoke one cigarette you don't want. You are back at the desk before the London close, looking for the next one. Errol dies in August. 63, on a Thursday, in a condo you'd never seen. You fly to Florida for the service, and during the actual service, you check the euro. You know exactly how that looks. You do it anyway, with the phone flat against your leg like a teenager. Afterward, his daughter shakes your hand and thanks you for coming all that way. You are the only person in the room who knew him purely as a voice, and you can't say that out loud, so you say he was a good teacher, which is true, and nowhere near the size of it. In the airport parking garage, you sit in the rental for a while without starting it. October, a podcast. Somebody sends you the link. Marcus is on it. They call him a rising star. He's good at it, easy, funny, no ego in the voice at all. Then he tells the origin story. The lobby, the security desk, the napkin, the 2 boxes, the whole thing. He tells it warmly. He gives you all the credit by name. He gets one detail wrong. In his version, he's the one who asked the question that started it. In yours, he asked to be taught. It's nothing. It's a man misremembering a Thursday from 4 years ago. You listen to it 4 times. Let me say one thing and then I will not bring it up again. A lot of you asked how I make this style of YouTube videos, so I gathered all my tactics for starting a channel like mine in this guide. If you want it, the link's below. Now let's get back to the video. Level 5. Forks rival. You call him about the podcast. You keep it light. That's the plan, and you execute it perfectly. Congratulations, you sounded great. They cut you off at the end there. He keeps it lighter. He asks about the apartment. Neither of you says the real sentence. You hang up and the apartment is very quiet, and you sit there understanding that something has ended and nobody announced it, and there is no one to tell. The texts start about a week later. Nobody proposes it. It just becomes the thing that happens at 5 o'clock. Who made more today? A screenshot than a screenshot back. At first, the balance is cropped out of frame. By November, nothing is cropped. Here's what you learn about yourself in that year, and you'd have paid a lot not to learn it. You do not want to make money. You want to make more money than one specific man who used to check your badge. His philosophy has changed and yours hasn't. He sizes up on conviction. No stop, he says a stop is just paying somebody to be wrong for you. He holds through the news and sleeps fine. You risk 1%. The app logs the losses now, but the rule is Errol's, and Errol is dead. And 1% is starting to feel less like a discipline and more like a leash somebody else buckled. And the infuriating part, the part that gets into your teeth, he wins. Not sometimes. Not the way a reckless man wins for a season and then donates it back. He wins for 2 straight years, longer than variance is supposed to let anybody. And every time you explain to yourself why it can't continue, it continues. In April, Devin Roach calls just to check in. He's warm. He's always warm. He asks about your mother by name. And somewhere in the middle of nothing he says, "You two are something else." He ran 3 times your size last Thursday and slept like a baby. 3 times your size. You hear the number. You do not hear the sentence around it. Not for 3 years. Then June, and your best day ever. $200,000 in a single session, and clean the entry planned on paper the night before, the size correct. The best trading of your life, by any measure that means anything. You send him the screenshot. He sends one back from an hour earlier. Bigger. The feeling lasts 11 minutes. You time it later because you are the kind of man who times things. In September, he takes a rate decision head-on with size that should not exist and makes 8 figures in a night. Then he buys a house in Germantown and invites you to it. You stand in a kitchen the size of your first apartment. He is generous about it. That's the thing. He is completely, genuinely generous, he tells the room you taught him. He tells it twice. He means it both times. Generosity is worse. You can defend yourself against a man who gloats. Then he hands you a glass and grins and says, "Come on, you don't even know what a candle is." The room laughs. It's the line from the napkin. It's the joke you made 8 years ago to a security guard in a clip-on tie. You laugh too. Something in your chest takes it out of his hand and files it somewhere it can be found later. You stay another 40 minutes. You are excellent company. You get home at 1 in the morning and you go to the drawer under the watch and you take out a pen you haven't held in 5 years. Then you open a spreadsheet and you begin working out what size, at what leverage, on what pair would produce a number large enough that nobody ever sends you a screenshot again. Not a number to retire on. A number that ends the conversation. Level 6, market whale. To make his number look small, you have to stop being a customer of this market and start being a feature of it. That's a threshold, and in February you cross it. And the first thing that happens is everything you're good at stops working. For 9 years you clicked once. You were in at the price you wanted because the price you wanted didn't care about you. That's over. Now your own order is the news. You start buying and the price runs from you while you're still buying it. You are the only man in the room bidding against himself, and you are losing. So you learn to feed it in. 4 hours to build what used to take 4 seconds. Fragments, spread across the session, and by the time you're in, the entry you planned is 40 pips behind you. Nobody warns you about this part. Everybody wants to be big. Nobody tells you it's a tax you pay on every decision, out of the exact thing that made you good. So you split it. 3 brokers, so no one desk sees the whole picture. 2 are white label shops with different logos on the same plumbing. You audit people for a living, and now you spend Sunday nights making sure your own brokers can't work out that you're you. And one night in March, out of habit, 4 years of internal audit, you pull their clearing relationships. 2 clicks in, you stop. Because the 3rd click tells you something about a man who remembered your mother's name and bought you dinner at Folks Folly when you were nobody. And you are not going to be that guy. The one who loses and goes looking for someone to have done it to him. You close the tab. You will spend the rest of your life remembering it. In April, the stops start going. 4 pips past your level. Filled, stopped out, gone, and the price turns around and goes exactly where you said it would without you, inside 60 seconds. Once is a market, twice is a bad month. It happens 3 times in 3 weeks. You know how it sounds. You've listened to 1,000 men explain that the market is rigged, every one of them broke, and you've spent 9 years despising that man. So you say the word coincidence out loud, in an empty apartment, and you go back to work. The 5 o'clock texts never stop. A stage in Miami, then a magazine, then a fund with his name on the door. You don't watch any of it, and you know all of it. His number is bigger every month. Then you solve it. Not the stops the size. You break the orders into fragments that don't look like fragments. Randomize them so they don't march. Work the dead hour between New York's close and Tokyo's open. You start eating dinner at 2 in the morning, because that's when the book is thin enough to hide in. You tell people you're on European hours. You are not on European hours. You are on nobody's, and it works. $40 million of exposure built in a single night, and the tape doesn't twitch. No slippage. No footprint. You sit back at 4 in the morning and you are, for about 6 hours, the smartest man who has ever lived, which is how it gets you. Now you have a method. The ceiling is gone. So in November you do it again. Bigger, the largest position of your career, built over 9 days, leveraged, sized against a number. A man texted you at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you don't set a stop, not because you forget. Because at this size, a stock isn't protection, it's a note telling everyone exactly where you die. And some part of you that you've refused to listen to all year has been saying somebody out there reads your notes. You write the number on the back page of the spreadsheet by hand with his pen. You don't type it anywhere a screen can keep it. Level 7. Market crash victim. Sunday 5:04 in the afternoon Eastern. The market does not open where it closed. It opens where it wants to. Somewhere on the other side of the world, a central bank did a thing on a weekend that nobody had on a calendar, and by the time the screens come alive, the price is 60 pips past your level. It isn't a move. A move has a middle. This has no middle. It is a hole where the price used to be, and your position is on the wrong side of it. You do what has always worked. You hit the button to get out. It doesn't fill. You move the price. You give it up. You give up more. You offer it at a level you would have called insane on Friday. It doesn't fill. And you sit there at 5:09 on a Sunday evening with your hand on a mouse, understanding in your body something you have known in your head for 9 years and never believed. The only reason you were ever able to leave was that somebody was willing to be on the other side. Tonight, nobody is. Margin call at 5:41. Then the number that ends it. Not zero. Below zero. You owe money on money you never had. And a man 6 years dead says it to you in lowercase, the way he typed it when you were 27 and had nothing left to protect. You don't have a direction problem. You were right about the euro. You were right for 9 years. It took 1 weekend. The dismantling takes 11 weeks, and there is nothing dramatic in any of it. The Porsche goes first, because the Porsche's fastest. The Rolex goes on a Tuesday to a pawn shop on Summer Avenue for a third of what it cost. And the kid behind the counter is kind about it. Genuinely kind. And that is the single worst 30 seconds of the entire year. Floor 22 goes in 6 weeks. You have less to move than you expected. You end up in a rented room with a window that faces the brick of the next building, close enough that you could touch it if the window opened. It doesn't open. Packing, you find the spreadsheet. Back page. The number in your own handwriting, the way Errol taught you to write things down so you couldn't delete them. And clip to it. A chewed blue ballpoint you took off a security desk when you were 26. You sit down on the floor of an apartment you paid cash for, and you cry for the first time since you were a boy, holding a pen worth about 40 cents and a piece of paper that says exactly what you did. Then you get up and finish packing. Marcus calls twice that month. You don't answer, and here is the thing you want understood. It isn't anger. There's nothing to be angry at him about. You know exactly whose hands were on this. You built it, you sized it, you refused the stop, and you wrote the number down yourself in your own handwriting. Nobody made you. For the rest of your life, people are going to ask what happened, and there will always be a version available where somebody did it to you, and you are never once going to reach for it. That's the only thing you keep out of the whole 9 years. But you keep it. And then, because you are what you have always been underneath all of it, you reconcile. A rented room, a stack of statements, and a pen. Fill by fill, line by line, the way you once went through a stranger's expense report looking for the place where a number stops telling the truth. It takes 2 weeks. Page 11. Every one of those stops, the 4 PP Wicks, the ones you called coincidence out loud in an empty apartment, every single one filled at a price that never printed anywhere else in the world. Not a bad market. Not a thin book. Not you. Somebody was on the other side. Level 8. Comeback King. You don't stop at page 11. Days you trade $3,000 at 1% risk the machine a dead man in Fort Lauderdale built inside you, running in the smallest room you've lived in since you were 26. Nights you reconcile. By page 90 you have a list. Every fill too good to be a market and too consistent to be luck. And there is a name on it. Marcus. Opposite you. Not once on your worst nights, sized like a man reading over your shoulder. You sit with that for 2 days. On the third, he calls you first, so angry he can barely get the sentences out. He has the mirror image, your name, opposite his. On the nights he got taken apart. Both true. Neither of you did it. Neither of you can hear that yet. The war takes 4 months and 3 strokes. He pulls 2 of your backers. You take 3 of his. You each say one thing on the record that cannot be walked back. At the end, you are both smaller and neither of you can name a single thing you won. Which is when you open the tab. The one from March, in the apartment on floor 22, 2 clicks in, 3 brokers, 2 white labels, 1 clearing house underneath all of it, Ardent, 7 years of your orders, and not one of them ever left the building. Ardent was the other side. Every time, which means every trade you ever placed, you placed against the man you were paying to carry it. They never had to beat you. They only had to know where you were. And on page 140 you find how they knew, and it isn't a document. It's a phone call. April, a warm voice, your mother by name, a number dropped in like a compliment. He ran 3 times your size last Thursday. He said it to you. Then he drove across town and said yours to Marcus. 4 years of that. He wasn't leaking. He was loading. Because 2 men that size swinging at each other put more leverage through a book in a month than 1,000 customers do in a year. The entire time you thought you were fighting Marcus, the 2 of you were the product. 2 grown men. 4 months of war. And the whole time there's a guy in a chair watching both screens, taking his cut of the swing, going home at 5. You do the arithmetic on folks' folly. $340 a plate twice. Cheapest money anybody ever spent on you. You're still sitting there with the printouts across the bed when the door goes? Marcus. In your rented room, he got the address the way he got everything that year, by paying for it. A folder under his arm 3 inches thick. 15 years of friendship and 4 months of trying to ruin each other, and the reconciliation is about to take 2 words. You found them too? Unfortunately. You put the pen down on the table between you and neither of you touches it, and neither of you says sorry then or ever. The trade takes 6 weeks to build. Real venue this time, real counterparties, cleared where you can see it. And you split the size so Ardent's desk reads exactly what it has been trained for 4 years to read, the 2 of you at each other's throats again. On opposite sides of the same pair. They take the other side. Of course they do. It's the only trade they know how to price. Except this one is real. Nobody is arrested. It isn't that kind of ending. Ardent's book cannot cover what it agreed to be the counterparty for, and on a Thursday morning in March the dedicated line rings out. Split 2 ways, it gives back a little under half of what you lost on a Sunday in November. Enough to never work again. Not enough for floor 22. And you find, sitting in a rented room with a folder and a friend, that you don't ask for it. Level 9. Market legend. A little under half of what you lost on a Sunday in November, sitting in an account you barely open. It is not floor 22. It is never going to be. And the strangest thing that ever happens to a man who spent 9 years unable to eat a meal without a phone in his hand is that he turns out to be fine with that. You stop checking. It takes 11 months. Nobody tells you it's coming. One evening you are eating dinner and the plate is empty and your phone is in another room and has been for 2 hours. They call you a legend now, which mostly means people repeat a story about you that is about 60% wrong. Ardent became a myth and you became the man in the middle of it. And in most versions you planned the whole thing from the beginning. And there is always a line about how you saw it coming. You saw none of it coming. You closed a tab. You stopped correcting it about 4 years ago. What you do now is teach, not a course, not a funnel, not a signals group, not a room with a rented Lamborghini in the background. 11 people above a dentist's office on Broad Avenue, Tuesday and Thursday nights. And for the first 4 weeks, you don't let them trade at all. You make them write it down. By hand on paper, every entry and every exit and the actual reason beside it in their own handwriting, where they can't delete it. 6 of the 11 quit before the second month. That is not a flaw in the course. That is the course. A few years into it, a kid in the second row puts his hand up and asks who the guy in the back is. Marcus is in the doorway with his coat still on. The first person I ever taught, you say. And the first person who ever beat me, he says. The room laughs. Not one of them understands what they just heard. Afterward, while they're filing out, you take the pen out of your shirt pocket and hold it out to him. 20 years. A napkin, a partnership, $1 million, a Sunday in November, a war, and a man named Roach, all of it between a snapped bootlace and this. He turns it over once. Looks at the chew marks on the cap. You owe me a pen, he says. Then he puts it in his pocket and asks if you want to get something to eat. That is the entire apology either of you ever makes. One kid stays behind. 23. Broke you can tell from the shoes and from the way he stands. Sharp though. Sharp in that specific furious way that hasn't found anywhere to go yet. He asks you how long it takes to get good. You know that hunger. You know exactly the shake of it. The way you'd know your own handwriting on a page across a room. He isn't asking how long it takes. He's asking how fast it can happen. So you pick up a marker. You draw 1 green box and 1 red box on the whiteboard. Same 2 shapes. 20 years later, standing up in a room above a dentist. But this time, you tell him the other part. Not what the candle is, what it costs. The 4 in the mornings. The knives. The funeral you spent looking at your phone. The friend you don't call for 5 months because he's winning. He's nodding, and he isn't listening. They never are. You teach him anyway. Then you turn off the lights and go home, and you don't check the price. If you like this story, subscribe for more, and comment below where you're watching from.